So pretty much ever since I turned 40, I started getting bombarded with targeted ads for testosterone replacement therapy. Now, I'm not against that, and depending on your circumstances, it may or may not be a good idea. But that's not what this video is about. Whilst it's true that testosterone levels naturally decline as we age, there are hidden culprits sabotaging your testosterone levels right now. So in today's video, I'm going to be sharing 7 testosterone killers you can start addressing immediately to improve your testosterone levels before you even consider anything like supplementation. And one of these is really quite shocking, and it might be hiding in your cupboards at home. So make sure you stick around to the end to learn about that one. First, I want to very briefly cover why testosterone is important. Many of us know testosterone as the hormone that is responsible for muscle growth, sex drive, and just overall masculine features such as facial hair. And that's all very true, but it's so much more than that. Testosterone is important for energy levels. In one study, almost a third of men who seek testosterone replacement therapy report a lack of energy as one of their key symptoms. Now, of course, there are many reasons for low energy beyond testosterone, but over half of men in a different study reported improved energy with testosterone replacement therapy. Testosterone levels have an impact on our mental health. Studies have shown that testosterone is important for mood, self-esteem, and overall quality of life in men. And it's important for bone density. We often think of testosterone in the same sentence as muscle growth, and indeed testosterone is a key factor in why men typically build bigger muscles than women, but it's also very important for bone density. Lower testosterone levels have been shown to correlate with osteoporosis, which is weak and brittle bones. And it's important for cardiovascular health. Several studies have suggested a low level of testosterone is associated with high levels of cardiovascular disease. Strangely, simply replacing testosterone doesn't necessarily fix that, with some recent studies suggesting that there may be an increase in cardiovascular events associated with testosterone replacement therapy. It's important for metabolic health too. As we'll see later on in this video, obesity and type 2 diabetes are closely aligned with male reproductive issues. Testosterone should definitely be part of the conversation around men's metabolic health. So hopefully that's given you an idea about why testosterone is important. Now let's take a look at those testosterone killers. First up, a sedentary lifestyle. We all know exercise is good for us, right? But what is the impact of exercise on testosterone levels? Well, the science is very clear on this. Being more physically active is beneficial for men who are sedentary or who have very low physical activities, and it improves testosterone levels and libido. But doing more and more exercise won't necessarily increase your testosterone levels any further. Resistance training and high intensity interval training have both been shown to boost testosterone levels in the short term. And this seems to be the consistent effect of exercise. A significant increase in testosterone during exercise, but it returns to baseline shortly after. Most of us probably don't have to worry about doing too much exercise, but for those at the top end of the spectrum who are training very frequently, particularly those consistently involved in endurance sports like marathon running over a long period, well, this has been shown to suppress testosterone levels. What I think might be interesting is the effect that exercise has on reducing cortisol, one of our key stress hormones. And this links nicely in with our second testosterone killer, which is stress. Now, stress affects us all in many different ways, but what's really interesting is that cortisol and testosterone have an inverse relationship. When cortisol levels go up, it can directly suppress testosterone production. Now, to understand why this happens, I need to tell you a bit about how testosterone is produced. Let's start in the brain, where the hypothalamus sends a hormone called gonadotrophin-releasing hormone, or GnRH for short, to the pituitary gland. This makes the pituitary gland release 2 hormones, which are luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Now, luteinizing hormone tells the Leydig cells in the testes to make testosterone. High cortisol levels interrupt this process and lower the amount of testosterone your body makes. And this all kind of makes sense when we look at it from an evolutionary perspective. The stresses that our ancestors faced were very different from those that we experience in the modern world. We're talking about things like coming up against a predator that you need to escape from or fight to survive. Now, whilst muscle growth and reproduction are important, when you're faced with mortal danger, they become less of a priority and your body needs to focus on dealing with the immediate threat. So it makes sense that the hormones associated with stress can influence other systems in our bodies. And so we see that higher cortisol levels cause a rapid decrease in testosterone levels. Compare this to stress in the modern world, which can of course be related to many different things: work stress, financial stress, legal issues, worry about elderly parents, worry about children who are also facing a very different set of stresses even than they did just 1 or 2 generations ago, just to name just a few. The body still responds in the same way, producing elevated level of cortisol, but it can often be over much longer periods than our ancestors would have faced. And stress, it's more than just about feeling frazzled. When you're stressed, you might not sleep well. So you're tired. You might skip your exercise. Some of us turn to alcohol as a coping strategy and have an extra drink or two to relax. Your diet goes out the window. And as you'll see from the rest of this video, those issues are going to have a common theme when it comes to testosterone. But next, let's talk about testosterone killer number 3, ultra-processed food. So there's been a massive change in what we eat over the last couple of centuries since the rise of industrialization. However, things have gotten significantly worse throughout my lifetime with a rise in ultra-processed foods, which now sadly make up the overwhelming majority of the diets in the Western world. It would probably be the biggest understatement of anything I've ever said on this channel to say that our bodies aren't exactly pleased with this change. And we know that high carbohydrate consumption can cause a sudden drop in testosterone levels. One study showed a drop of 25% after consuming 75 grams of glucose. And type 2 diabetes, where those blood glucose levels are persistently elevated, is also strongly associated with lower testosterone levels. Ultra-processed foods are often extremely high in refined carbohydrates and sugars, which will send our blood glucose levels soaring. In contrast, whole foods rich in micronutrients and phytonutrients support testosterone production. Specifically, healthy fats, and yes, I include saturated fats in that, they're important building blocks for our hormones. Protein, as you know, is important for muscle growth and it supports testosterone production too. Cruciferous vegetables, that's broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, things like that. Foods rich in zinc, such as meat and seafood, and vitamin D from sunlight as well as from dietary sources. So making the switch from ultra-processed food to unprocessed foods is generally a good starting point when it comes to testosterone. But it's more than just diet, isn't it? We need to consider what goes along with a bad diet. Ultra-processed foods also tend to have higher energy density. That leads to an increase in body fat, which brings us nicely onto our next testosterone killer, obesity. Okay, let's get a little bit technical again. Adipose tissue, or fat tissue, contains an enzyme called aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen. So in obesity, increased estrogen levels due to higher aromatase activity can create a hormonal imbalance. Elevated estrogen can signal to the hypothalamus and pituitary gland, leading to a reduction in the secretion of luteinizing hormone and subsequently lowering testosterone production. Low levels of testosterone can also lead to the development of female secondary sexual characteristics. That's why obesity is often associated with gynecomastia, or the development of breast tissue in men. Obesity can also reduce levels of something called sex hormone binding globulin. That's a protein that binds to testosterone and regulates its availability in the blood. Lower sex hormone binding globulin levels result in less bioavailable testosterone. And unfortunately, it gets worse. Obesity leads to lower testosterone. Lower testosterone makes it easier to gain weight and more challenging to build muscle. And it's a vicious cycle. The good news, this cycle can be broken. Losing weight can lead to increased testosterone levels, which make it easier to lose fat and gain muscle. And yes, I know that sustainable weight loss can feel like an impossible mountain to climb, especially if you failed to lose weight many times before. I know this because I've been there. Back in 2016, I was obese and I lost over 30 kilograms or 66 pounds in just over 6 months to reverse that, and I've sustained a normal weight ever since. I've helped a lot of others to do that, including those with more weight to lose than I had. This is my client Brenton. He's currently down 135 pounds from his lifetime maximum weight. That's all in about 18 months. Brenton's kindly allowed me to share these photographs with you to hopefully prove to a few more guys that this can be done. So what did myself and Brenton do? Well, I put everything I know on this subject into a free training that you can check out by going to drdanmags.com/free training. I'll leave that link in the description down below this video too. Okay, let's move on and talk about testosterone killer number 5, alcohol. You probably heard of brewer's droop, right? That not so fun side effect after a heavy night of drinking? Well, excessive alcohol might lead to more than just one night of disappointment. Alcohol can interfere with the function of each component of the male reproductive system, potentially causing impotence, infertility, and reduced male secondary sexual characteristics. Chronic alcohol misuse can directly affect the Leydig cells, which, as I mentioned earlier, are the cells in the testes that produce testosterone. It can even cause shrinkage of the testicles themselves. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. What about drinking in moderation? Surely that's okay, right? Well, here's where it gets interesting. One study suggests that moderate alcohol intake is not adversely associated with semen quality in healthy men. It might even be associated with higher testosterone levels, which may be due to changed metabolism of testosterone in the liver. Now, just for clarity, I'm not suggesting you start drinking moderate amounts of alcohol to improve your testosterone levels. Alcohol, of course, has impacts beyond the consumption of alcohol itself. It can cause weight gain directly, and it can also lead to poor decisions around food, which of course will contribute to the development of obesity. Additionally, alcohol has a significant negative effect on the quality and quantity of our sleep, which brings us to testosterone killer number 6, sleep deprivation. So we all know that getting enough sleep is essential for our health, and that doesn't change when it comes to testosterone production. We've learned already how testosterone produced, but what we haven't talked about is when it's produced. A significant proportion of testosterone is produced during sleep, with the majority being released during the rapid eye movement or REM phase. Therefore, adequate sleep and high quality sleep are essential for optimum testosterone production. One study found that restricting sleep to 5 hours a night, which is a condition faced by at least 15% of the US working population, can decrease testosterone levels during the day 10 to 15%. By comparison, normal aging reduces testosterone levels by 1 to 2% per year. That means that a week of poor sleep could age you 10 to 15 years in terms of your testosterone levels. Now, do you know how much sleep you're getting? Many of us will have some sort of wearable device that will give you data about not only the duration of your sleep, but also the quality of your sleep. If you don't have one of these, I highly recommend the Whoop Band, which is what I've been using for the last couple of years now, and I'm very happy with it. The video isn't sponsored by Whoop or anything like that, but if you go to drdanmags.com/Whoop, you can use that to get a free month. The data from the Whoop Band has helped me improve not only the duration of my sleep, but also the quality too. So I'm getting loads more REM sleep than I used to. And I made some videos all about improving sleep quality, which you can see by going up here. Now, of course, many factors can disrupt sleep quality, and we've already talked about stress and alcohol in there. But there's also a condition called obstructive sleep apnea, which is common in people with obesity. And that often goes undiagnosed for a very long time. And it's also associated with lower testosterone levels. And just to add in another vicious cycle here, low testosterone levels are themselves associated with poor sleep quality. It's thought that the testosterone itself helps regulate sleep patterns, and lower levels can themselves lead to more fragmented sleep, less quality of sleep, which in turn leads to reduced testosterone levels. But I wanted to finish this video off on what I think is probably the scariest of all the testosterone killing factors that we've discussed today: endocrine disrupting chemicals. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, or EDCs, are chemicals that interfere with our body's hormonal systems. They're found commonly in our environments. They can be detected in our blood, our urine, and even in our fat tissue. To give you an idea of just how big an issue this is, consider this. Girls today are hitting puberty approximately 1 year earlier than they did just a few decades ago. It's believed that exposure to these endocrine disrupting chemicals is a significant factor behind this shift. So what are endocrine disruptors and where can you find them? Part of the problem here is that they are found in many everyday products and our environments, making them very difficult to avoid. These chemicals are present in adhesives, plastic food containers, air fresheners, and various cleaning products. They can also be found in plastic toys, cosmetics, and even in medicines. Pesticides used on fruits and vegetables are a common source of these endocrine disruptors. These chemicals can also be found in processed foods and drinks, also in things like wine, and in our water supplies. And endocrine disrupting chemicals are also present in the air we breathe due to pollution from vehicles, industrial emissions, as well as other sources. And whilst there's been a significant progress in regulating these chemicals, they continue to pose a global challenge. Despite the improved regulations, reducing exposure to these chemicals remains difficult due to their widespread use and persistence in the environment. That said, I will be giving you some practical ways which you can cut down on exposure to these chemicals in just a minute. But first, this is a video about testosterone. So what is the impact of these chemicals on testosterone levels? These chemicals can mimic our natural hormones, bind to hormone receptors, and block the actions of our body's natural hormones. As a result, testosterone levels decrease while estrogen levels increase. These chemicals also harm other aspects of male reproductive health by lowering sperm count, reducing sperm movement, and changing sperm shape. And if that wasn't enough, exposure to these chemicals has been linked to testicular tumours and prostate cancer. Let's talk about some of the practical ways to reduce exposure to some of the most common endocrine disruptors found in everyday items. Bisphenol A or BPA and phthalates are chemicals that are commonly found in plastics. BPA is found in water bottles and food containers and is used to enhance the performance and durability of these plastics. Phthalates are used as plasticizers to make plastics more flexible and durable and can be found in things like vinyl flooring, shower curtains, and kids' toys. BPA and phthalates can act as estrogen mimics, binding to estrogen receptors and disrupting the balance of hormones, reducing testosterone production. Phthalates can further reduce testosterone by interfering with the function of the testes and the hormonal signaling pathways. Now, as I've mentioned, there has been a lot of regulation concerning these products. In the EU, for example, BPAs are banned in food contact plastics. Phthalates are now banned in kids' toys, but you'd still be wise to check. So check the labels. Ensure any plastics that come into contact with your food are BPA and phthalate free, especially those containers that have been in the cupboard for years, or that plastic-lined water bottle that you've been refilling for ages. Avoid heating food in plastics. Use glass or ceramic containers for microwaving or storing hot food. And check toy labels. You know those plastic blocks that have been passed around in the family for years that you and your children or your grandchildren play with? What's in them? The second group of chemicals I want to draw your attention to are parabens. Parabens are used as preservatives in a wide range of personal care products, including shampoos, conditioners, lotions, and cosmetics. They can act as endocrine disruptors by mimicking estrogen, which can lower testosterone levels. These are still routinely added to many cosmetics, so you might want to look for personal care products that are labelled as paraben-free. Finally, another major source, as I've already mentioned, is pesticide exposure. And some pesticides can interfere with hormone production and function, leading to lower testosterone levels. However, not all produce is equal in its pesticide exposure. The Dirty Dozen is an annual list compiled by the Environmental Working Group, which is a US-based non-profit organization which highlights the 12 fruits and vegetables with the highest levels of pesticide residues. Now, this is of course US specific, and indeed some of the pesticides they cite as cause for concern are banned in the EU. Strawberries routinely top their list, and I think spinach often comes in second. On the other end of the spectrum, you also have the Clean 15. These are the produce with the lowest amounts of pesticide residues. So practically speaking, there are a few things you can do to minimize your exposure to pesticides. Firstly, consider buying organic produce, and you can use the Dirty Dozen and Clean 15 lists to prioritize which produce you want to buy organically. You can soak fruit and vegetables to remove some of the surface pesticides, or you could peel fruits and vegetables to remove pesticides, but of course that might strip away some of the nutrients too. So hopefully you found a few areas of your life that you might want to have a look at when it comes to things that will detract from your testosterone levels. And some of these things are more difficult to address than others. I think the sleep one is often a really quick win for many people, and you can check out my video on that by clicking the link on the screen right now. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and make sure you're subscribed to my channel so you don't miss any more videos like this one. Take care, see you in the next one.